Last day in rain for California, a fire risk for the eastern Rockies, freezing rain for Minnesota and Wisconsin, and snow from Ontario to the northeast. Good morning, I'm meteorologist Pew. It's January 5th, 2025. California, we have this low pressure system that's off the coast and it's traveling southward, but at the same time, it is weakening. So as with yesterday's forecast, Northern California and the Bay Area are continuing to see this heavy rain, and though it's going to be more scattered throughout the day, but unfortunately, this is going to last until about like 4 a.m. Pacific time. The Weather Prediction Center still issue a marginal risk for flash flooding, mostly because this area has already been pretty saturated with the amount of rain that we've been seeing for this past week, but also in areas that are around like burn scars. Now we do have another low pressure system that's coming to the Pacific Northwest, and places like Washington State and Oregon are definitely going to see some rain overnight today, and this is going to occur mostly for tomorrow. Now these two low pressure systems are something we're going to have to keep an eye on, because later throughout this week they're going to kind of combine forces in a way. So looking at 500 millibars of midwinter troposphere, we still have this high pressure that's somewhere in the south and is very slowly moving to the east, but still with that clockwise flow, it is going to be moving both these low pressure systems. So that low pressure in California is eventually going to be yoinked by that high pressure on its tail end, but that high pressure in the Pacific Northwest is still going to be dropping more to the south with that Arctic air coming in. And what's mostly likely going to happen is we're going to have a low pressure that's going to develop somewhere around the eastern Rockies and then eventually strengthen as it travels eastward throughout the state. And so by Friday, there are some confidence by the Storm Prediction Center that we're going to see some severe weather, mostly for the Mississippi Valley region. Now rewind back to today, and speaking of low pressures in the eastern Rockies, we had one develop yesterday and is slowly traveling to the east, but because it's positioned right now, we're having a lot of westerly flow going perpendicular from the Rocky Mountains. And so like always, we're having that downslope warming effect where we're having both warming and drying of the eastern Rocky region. But we're also going to have sustained winds from about 15 miles per hour or greater, and so we're going to have a fire risk going from the eastern Rockies, New Mexico, and the Texas Panhandle especially. We're going to see relative humidities around 15 to 20%, and so with the dryness, it's going to be easy for fire ignition, and with the wind speed, it's going to be easy for fire spread. Going back up at 500 millibars, we are going to have another shortwave trough that's going to be forming in the eastern Rockies, but more in the northern plains. And so similar to yesterday, this shortwave trough is relatively weak, but it's still bringing a little bit of vorticity or spin, and that's going to help with the upward motion. But it's also going to enhance that low pressure that we just saw that's in the southern plains in this moment. And with low pressure being counterclockwise flow, we're going to have more southerly flow going into the upper Midwest, bringing a little bit of more warm, moist air. And we can see this in the low levels too with that southerly flow, but more importantly, right now, it is still relatively warm above freezing. But at the surface from central Minnesota to central Wisconsin, it's still going to be freezing. And so with the air aloft being above freezing, we're going to have precipitation that's going to fall as like freezing rain. So in general, in these areas, we're going to have mixed precipitation, but with the most risks being ice. And so because we saw this very same thing yesterday, that remnants of that first storm is still going to be going into Ontario and the northeast in this moment. So today for these areas, we're going to see about 1 to 4 inches of snowfall. But because we're almost seeing a duplicated system that's happening right now in the Midwest, that's going to also travel eastward, places like Ontario and the northeast are going to see again another round of snow for Tuesday.